Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Good afternoon.
Okay, I just made you the host just now.
All right then. No problem.
Because I was speaking the beans.
If I take your breath away. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session of this training. We'll just wait for a few more minutes for others to join us, then we'll begin. We'll wait for like 2 to 3 minutes, then we'll start. Thank you for joining in.
Hello. Good morning or good afternoon. Hello. Yeah, this is Professor Sima. I'm in the house, so if we're ready, we can start.
Okay. Welcome, sir. Okay.
So
good afternoon, everyone.
Enable me to share my. I can't share my screen. Can you enable me to share screen?
Okay. Yes, of course.
Enable me to share my screen. If you want to share the screen, have you done that?
Yes, you can try now.
Okay, I think it's there. Who is calling me now? Hold on a minute. Maybe they think, hello? Yeah? No, I'm giving a lecture now, a Zoom lecture. I can't talk now. I'll call you when I'm done. Okay. Hello, are you seeing my slide?
Yes, sir. I can see a slide.
Okay, let me try on the slideshow and see if that works. Is this still showing?
Yes, it is.
Did it move?
No.
It didn't move?
No, it did not.
Yeah, then it obviously means my system has a fault. Okay, let's do this. Did it move?
Yes.
It's moving now.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we need to manage this because I observed that this is the first time it's happening. When I'm on slideshow, it doesn't move. I don't know what the problem is. They've tried to say it's lagging behind. It's not moving now?
No, it's not.
It's not moving now. Okay, yeah, that's a problem is there. All right, so let me go on. It's moving now, am I correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do, we use this we use this to present, and after the lecture, what I would do is to send you the PowerPoint so that whoever wants to, I'm trying to bring on my camera. My camera is not showing. Am I correct?
No, it's not.
Okay, I will sort it out now. I will sort it out. Okay. Can you see is it showing now? Yeah,
Yes,
you can
sir,
see
it
that.
is.
Excellent.
Yes,
so we should be fine now. So if you tell me when to start, if you want to start, so that
Okay, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone, once again. Welcome to this session of the training. Please, if you join in, kindly mute your mic so you would not distract our trainer for today. I'll quickly read his portfolio out for us, and then we can begin. Our trainer for today is Prof. Clement Osime, and he's taking us on the topic, the Confluence of Health and Rights of Nigerians. Prof. Clement Osime was born in Irua to the family of Blessed Osime and Deaconess Agnes Osime. He graduated with a grade 1 in 1982 from Annunciation Catholic College. He studied quantity surveying at the Federal Polytechnic, Auchi, and graduated with distinction as the best graduating student in 1985. Thereafter, he obtained his MBBS from the University of Benin in 1991. He had his residency training in general surgery from 1994 to 1999 at the University of Benin Teaching Hospital with interest in surgical oncology, and obtained the fellowship of the Nigeria National Postgraduate Medical College in Surgery. He also obtained a master's degree in immunology and immunochemistry from University of Benin in 1999. He was later called to the Nigerian bar in 2007, having graduated as the best student in 2006 in part-time law program of the University of Benin. Prof. Osime later obtained fellowship and diploma in minimal access surgery. He recently became a foundation MD degree holder of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. Prof. Osime worked as a general surgeon at the Irua Specialist Teaching Hospital between April 2000 and December 2001. He thereafter transferred his services to the University of Benin in 2002, where he rose quickly through the ranks to become a professor of general surgery and surgical oncology in 2011. He has attended several conferences both within and outside Nigeria. He has over 70 publications in reputable journals. His main interest areas are surgical oncology and ethical and legal aspects of medical practice. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. You can proceed with the presentation.
All right. Thank you very much. Like the MC mentioned, let us try and mute our phones so that we can maximize the time effectively. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm glad to interact with very young people and to teach them a few things about the health and rights of Nigerians. Okay. All right. So our learning objectives: 1 will be to understand the meaning of health. 2, we shall also look at various laws that regulate medical practice, to know where to access these laws, to use the data from the current archives on Nigeria health rights to draft policies, to understand the rights of the patients and also the rights of the doctors. Lastly, we shall be looking at the limitations of the current Nigeria health rights, both from the patients and the doctor's angle. Now, by way of introduction, we need to understand that the era of the patient saying, oh, that's the will of God, or the doctor knows everything, knows it all, that era is long gone. You know, before now, if a patient died or was mismanaged and you have some injuries or defects, it was a very common phrase, oh, well, that's all God wants, and that's the will of God. That is no longer the situation today. The patient don't know their rights. because they are becoming increasingly aware of their rights. To that extent, therefore, physicians must avoid situations that may lead to litigation. Who's a physician? A physician is a healthcare provider that practices the profession of medicine, which is concerned with promoting, maintaining, or restoring health through the study, diagnosis, and treatment of diseases, injuries, and other physical and mental impairments. Now, introducing to within the scope of his or her education, which means you must have the requisite knowledge to do what you plan to do as a doctor. Then, adequate training, and also have the experience in that field of study. However, all this must be in accordance with the ethics of the profession and applicable laws. The meaning is that a physician cannot just practice arbitrarily. It must be guided by rules and orders, by laws and the ethics of the profession. It is a great privilege to be a physician. At the same time, it comes with great responsibilities on the part of the physician. Now, who is a patient, on the other hand? We must look at the confluence of health and rights. Who is a patient? A patient is someone with a health.
Okay, you
Please, can you mute your mic, please? A patient is someone with a health challenge in whatever form. Oftentimes, they require the services of the doctor and the desire to be shown love, adequate care, and empathy by the caregivers. Adequate care on the line and empathy by the caregivers. Along this line, the patient comes to meet the doctor with expectations that I need to be shown love, I need to be managed with some degree of seriousness, and the doctor should show me some empathy. Now, we more look at the duty of care. I've just said the patient, we owe the patient a duty as doctors. A duty of care is a legal obligation on a party. This time around, we're looking at health, on the doctor to take care, not to allow injury to be suffered by another individual. In tort, the law of tort, that is, duty of care is a legal obligation levied on an individual requiring adherence to a standard of reasonable care while you are performing any act that may possibly occasion harm to another person, and that harm will be seen as reasonably foreseeable. We're going to come to that shortly. We'll come to the law, the rule in the CVC and Donoe, that if I owe a duty of care to somebody, it's not just, oh, this immediately I can see. I want to stretch my mind. This my action or inaction. How can it affect this patient I'm managing now and also even on long term? For example, if you're going to do a herniorrhaphy and you severed the vas deferens in the process, you have created a problem for that young man. He may not have any issue now, but you would know that that thing you have done in the future is going to create some issues with infertility and all that. So that is reasonably foreseeable that if I injure the vas deferens, particularly on both sides, I may create a problem for that person. I already know that that's a problem. That would be reasonably foreseeable. Now, once, hello, ma, can we mute who is the rapporteur? Can we mute other person who are not speaking?
Yes, I will do that. Thank you.
Once a doctor undertakes to treat a patient, a duty of care has arisen. The way I've tried to explain what duty of care is. It doesn't now matter whether you are collecting money for that treatment or it's free. Duty of care is established. So as young doctors, when you start practicing, don't say because you are treating your cousin, your relations, is free of charge, and you now trivialize it. No, you must exhibit the degree of care you will have exhibited if the patient had paid you. It's very important we look at that. So don't think that, oh, because the patient is not paying me, you become like a dassika in your attitude. You must treat the patient with that same care you will give whether you are paid or not. We must understand that. A doctor must conform to the reasonable standard of an ordinary doctor of his training and skill. What does that mean? That as a doctor, nobody expects you to be like a distinction doctor, that, oh, you are solid, you are high up there, you are infallible. No, you must operate the way an ordinary doctor who is diligent is doing his work. If you are super, that's extra. But the Lord wants from you is to do something. That is why when you mismanage a patient or you are set to mismanage a patient, for example, the Lord doesn't just hold you. What the Lord does is to measure your activities with another person's activity who is deemed to be reasonable, to see if that doctor would have managed that patient the way you did. If a greater majority of doctors would have managed that patient the way you did, whether injuries resulted or harm resulted or not, you will not be said to be guilty or negligent, because your colleagues would have managed the patient in exactly the same way, provided they are reasonable people. Now, the age-long principle of duty of care was first articulated by Brett in the case of Heaven and Pender. I will just give a summary of this case for the sake of time. In this case, somebody had like a dog owner, so they went to pen the sheep. The ropes they were using to pen the sheep they were defective, they were weak. So the painter, using that rope, the rope snapped and the painter fell from a height and suffered injuries. So it was said that the owner of that dog, who knew he should have looked at the rope and be sure that it was safe to use to do the painting job, was found guilty. So then, in this case of Donoghue and Stevenson, this other case of duty of care, we have somebody that produces beer, ginger. Somebody took that beer in a different city. And the person that took the beer, let's say you produce beer in Lagos, somebody drank it in Kaduna. That beer had a piece of snail, rotten snail. So the person took the snail and got, tummy upset and all that. And the matter went to court. That I took this snail, I took this beer that had a rotten piece of snail, and I had abdominal upset and all that. So it was concluded by Lord Atkin that there was a general duty to take reasonable care to avoid foreseeable injury to a neighbor. In this, what we call who is my neighbor? That is the popular story, how it came about. Who is my neighbor? It was well established in this case of Donoghue and Stevenson, who is my neighbor. And Lord Atkin said, your neighbor is that person who will be affected either directly or remotely by your action or inaction. In this case, you should have known that this your beer you are producing can be consumed several kilometers away. So that person who is going to take the beer in Kaduna, as we use as an example, is your neighbor. So your neighbor is also somebody in your vicinity in this regard. Is somebody that is going to be affected by your action, okay, either now or later. Now let's look at what Health's definition of health and rights of the patient. We need to listen to some of this. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Which means, for example, if I operate on a patient and be surgeon, and somehow I mentally torture that patient, I don't come to do ward round to see the patient. I've done the operation quite all right. The operation looked good, but soon after the operation, the patient didn't see the surgeon, never saw you again, or he's talking to you, you talk to the patient in a very harsh manner. That patient is not mentally healthy. So it's not just the mere absence of disease or infirmity. It includes physical, mental, and social well-being. Again, you must know that. The enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights. We're looking at confluence of health and rights. It's one of the fundamental rights of every human being, without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic or social condition. Which means that if I'm going to attend to patients, The same way we attend to a big man is the same way you attend to the man you say is not a big man. I'll make it clearer. Assuming you are running a clinic, a millionaire comes first. The wheelbarrow pusher is number 10 or number 2 rather. The wheelbarrow pusher came first. The millionaire is the last to come. When you are calling patient in, you call the millionaire first. Other people will be complaining, I'm the first to come, I'm the first to come. And you just ignore them. Those people can sue you because when you administer health in this manner, usually there's no distinction in race, political standing, economic standing, or social condition of the person you are dealing with. Everybody ought to be equal. That's important. Now, the health of all people is fundamental to the attainment of peace and security, and it's dependent on the full cooperation of individuals and the states. We're going to develop this later. It depends on the cooperation of individuals and the state. For example, if you are mismanaged as a patient and you keep quiet, that doctor may never know you have done something wrong. He is likely going to repeat it at another time. Whereas, if you reported the doctor and he was called to order, then of course, he will behave well. So it requires the cooperation. The patient have a role to play, the states have a role to play. The states, in this case, maybe the country, can call the doctor to order when you have mismanaged a patient. All right. 1 second. Okay, fine. The achievement of any state in the promotion and protection of health is of value to all, like in Nigeria, to get health. But unequal development in different countries in the promotion of health and control of disease, especially communicable disease, is a common danger. World Health recognized it long ago. It's a common danger. You have unequal development. Of course, child needs adequate development. Very important. The extension to all peoples of the benefits of medical, psychological, and related knowledge is essential to the fullest of attainment of health. Of course, remember, this must extend to every person. Governments have a responsibility for the health of their people, which can be fulfilled only by the provision of adequate health and social measures. Social measures, the patient is mismanaged. He doesn't have the money to take legal action. The government can be there to support. That's a part of social measure. You are mismanaged in an hospital, you want to take legal action, you don't have the money to do so. A serious government can offer legal services to such a patient to ensure that justice is served at the end of the day. In practical terms, to that extent, the government ought to provide laws that will protect the patients. There will be laws in place. Otherwise, doctors can practice anyhow they want to practice. Number 2, we also need to know, however, that doctors are human beings and that they equally have their rights. Therefore, we're going to look at the rights of the patients juxtaposed against the rights of the doctors, and we'll draw some similarities and all that. Now, we mentioned duty of care a while ago in general terms. We're now looking at the duties the doctors owe the patients. Basically, as doctors, you are to work towards respecting the rights of the patient, which means if you know the rights of your patients and you obey them, you respect the rights, you are not likely to have any legal issues with your patient. That is the truth of the matter. So, what are those rights? That will take us to the Patient Bill of Rights, which was launched by the federal government on the 1st of August in 2018. This document actually summarizes the rights of the patient. It was developed by the Consumer Protection Council, the Federal Ministry of Health in Nigeria, and other stakeholders. Just for example, if I go and buy a bottle of drink and it's half, it's not full, I can go to Consumer Protection Council to make a case to say this person gave me a bottle of drink that wasn't up to what I paid for, and you have a case. All right. The Bill of Rights is an aggregation of existing rights of all persons in Nigeria, patients inclusive, as founded in the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. They also drew part of this document from the Consumer Protection Act, like I mentioned, the Child Rights Act, children have their rights, Freedom of Information Act, National Health Act of 2014, we're going to see just now, and other regulations and several other professional ethical codes, such as the Hippocratic Oath. Hippocrates is considered father of medicine that gave us the Hippocratic Oath, the way we ought to practice medicine, taking the well-being of the patient as our primary priority. Which means, for example, if a patient is under your care as a resident doctor and you go on strike, you just walk away from where without discharging the patient appropriately to continue his care elsewhere, you are guilty. All right, so you should know about Hippocratic laws and what it says, and the modifications and other sundry regulations that came up thereafter. I will just show a few things about what the Patient Bill of Rights seeks to actually achieve. Number one is to help patients feel more confident in the healthcare system. Now it came about. Patients were losing confidence in the healthcare system. You go to hospital, you are mismanaged. Instruments have forgotten your tummy and all that. So there are lots of confidence in the system. So that one the reason this was instituted. So that it assures the healthcare system that the healthcare system is fair and it works to meet the needs of the patient. It gives a patient a way to address any problem they may have. It's one of the outlets patient can use, the Rights Act of the Patient Bill of Rights. Patient can use this to attend to all those mismanagement. All right. It also encourages a patient to take an active role in staying or getting healthy. All right. A patient knows because they're what we call contributory negligence. If you are given instruction by your doctors, for example, and you are asked to do certain things, for example, take one tablet a day. It's written for you. They say, we ask you a question. Did you understand? You say, yes, sir. Your voice understand it, documented, maybe with a witness around. But you went home and you started taking 2 of that tablet 3 times a day instead of taking 1 tablet a day. If an issue comes from a side effect come from that your overuse of the drug, you cannot now go and sue the doctor because the doctor told you what to do. That was called contributory negligence. You have contributed. Even though you are the patient that has suffered harm in this regard, you will not have any claim to make against your doctor. So that one is another role it plays. It makes a patient to be active in playing a role to stay healthy. Number 2, to stress the importance of a strong relationship between patients and their healthcare providers. We ought to know it's a very strong relationship, very strong relationship. To stress the key role patients play in staying healthy by laying out rights and responsibility of all patients, healthcare providers. So the patients should know their rights, know what they're doing, and take it like that. Now, we said some were pulled out from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. For example, if you go to chapter 4 of that Constitution, you will see that every Nigerian, you are entitled to be treated with dignity anywhere, whether in the hospital, in the offices, in government public places, you must be treated with dignity. You have right to self-determination. The Constitution says nobody can take your life, except, of course, is to serve maybe a death sentence or whatever. If it's not death sentence and somebody takes the life of somebody you know, then that person has gone against the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that person can be taken off. That doctor can be taken off. Maybe the doctor gave euthanasia. In Nigeria today, euthanasia is an offense. It's an offense. Mercy killing. You cannot do that. But abroad, in some countries, euthanasia is allowed. But in Nigeria, euthanasia is not allowed. So there's right to self-determination. You can refuse treatment, for example. Nobody can force you to come and take any treatment. Okay? That's determination, preservation of life. All right? Now let's look at the rights of the patient now in details. We'll just run through. Maybe during question and answer contribution, we can take them. Patient has a right to medical care of good quality. By extension, really, this point summarizes all the rights of the patient. Good quality. If you give good quality of care, you would have actually taken into consideration the rights of the patient. For example, if a patient is in an emergency ward, you are contacted as a doctor to come and see, you are there promptly, that a patient will be happy. If you are coming after 2 hours and you come in with phone in your ear, the patient will say, they told you since I've been here since 7 o'clock, you are coming at 9:30, you are ever coming, you are making a phone call. That patient can take you up that you didn't give good quality of care. Even if you gave medications and the patient got better than when he came to the ward, because of that delay, it doesn't qualify to be called good quality of care. Patient has the right of freedom of choice. Remember, the Constitution is also the right to self-determination. A patient can consent to take treatment. At the same time, a patient can discharge against medical advice. Patient has the right to information. Before you operate on the patient, for example, or carry out any procedure for that matter, the patient must have the details of his diagnosis, treatment plan, the possible complications that will result from the management, and the patient should be told. Patient has right to confidentiality. I'll give you a typical example here. There was a case we handled some time ago where a lady who is a member of Jehovah's Witness Church, before she got married, had done some abortions. And when we were going to get married, this very handsome bobo, he didn't want to tell the bobo the correct age. He told the wrong age, less than the boy's age. And they got married. They were happy, had children, no issues. The woman now came to register for antenatal in an hospital where a church member works. He works in an antenatal unit of that hospital. I saw the file of this church member, Jehovah's Witness, and opened the file, reading through, so that the lady had done abortions about 3 times in the past. Then he also saw that the age in the folder is different from the age, in the church. And so she went to the elders council to say, do you know that this sister is deceiving us? She had done abortion 3 times. Her age is not the same age we have in our record. Unfortunately, the church elders were very ignorant. I say ignorant because if they were intelligent, they would have told the woman to keep quiet immediately and stop the discussion there. They were ignorant and summoned the lady to come and answer a query. We heard you have done abortion. We heard this is not your age. The lady went to court and sued for 250 million for breach of confidentiality. So the point we are making is you must not divulge information about your patient to anybody, excepting what we call on the need to know basis. Right of dignity, we saw that in the Constitution. Right to religious assistance, a patient in the world has a right to be attended to by the bishop of his church, by the imam, provided that is according to the rule of the hospital. I'll give you an example. If the hospital closes the ward to visitors by 6 p.m., you cannot say my pastor is around to pray for me by 10 p.m. It's not acceptable. But once it's within the ambit of the law and say, I have a visitor, let my pastor come and pray for me, you cannot stop it because it's an imam or because it's a bishop and all that. But while they are doing that, you also need to be careful that they're not going to be making scarification marks on the patient. We had this some time ago where a patient had an aneurysm. Aneurysm is a dilated blood vessel that's pulsating. So he said, we have somebody that I want to pray for, not knowing that we have these native doctors or whatever, or to the traditional people. So they went into the cubicle and they took a razor blade. They were making scarification marks on the aneurysm. Unfortunately for them, they opened the aneurysm, they saw blood in the ceiling, and they ran away. So the point I'm making is that yes, they can have their religious assistance, but under regulation. That's the point I'm making there. They have right to examine their bill, even if they are the one paying, even though they're not the one paying for the treatment, they have right to examine their bill. Don't tell them, are you the one paying? Somebody may have paid for them. It's still their right to know how much is the bill, how much did that man pay for me? He may want to know and document it. Tomorrow, when God blesses him, he's not a big man, he may want to double that same money. He has his right. Why he's asking you? Don't tell him, are you the one paying? Of course, billing will be transparent. Patients should know the rules in the facility. I just give you an example of visitors and all that. We'll close our ward by 6 p.m. to visitors. So your visitor cannot come by 7 when you are currently must come in. Then patients have right for a feedback channel. You are managing a patient and patient is not satisfied with your management. You should to get a feedback. Even when they are happy with you, they have a right to get a feedback. The right to emergency care without pay is also there. But remember this, doctors should know the patient also have responsibilities. Remember I mentioned a while ago what we call, contributory negligence. Patient have that responsibility also. Because when they fail in their own responsibility and the doctor is seen to have done his own bit, that patient may not have a case. So the knowledge of this responsibility may become very relevant to the doctor. It can protect you where a patient has not kept his part of the bargain. What are those responsibilities of the patient? Number one, the patient ought to provide complete and accurate information about himself or herself to the doctor. Doctor is a magician. He might ask you, what's your blood group? You'll say a different thing. What's your genotype? You say a different thing. So it's your duty to tell your doctor everything about you. It's their duty to seek information on any aspect that is not clear to them. They must keep their appointments and be on time. You cannot say because you're a patient, you have your right. Clinic that start by 9, you come by 1 p.m. Nobody will see you. I do that a lot. You come by 2 p.m., say, today's my clinic day. We say, where have you been since 8 o'clock when we start clinic? So they must keep the appointment and keep to the schedule. They must treat staff, other patients, and visitors with respect and decorum. You cannot treat people shabbily because you're a patient. They must obey facility rules and regulations. They must inform appropriate personnel when they live in the ward. They must obey rules regarding their health. I give you a typical example. Take 1 tablet a day. You cannot go and be taking 2 tablets 3 times a day. You cause some harm to yourself. Then they must respect the hospital property or facility. You don't see a television hung on the wall because you're a patient. You go there and be banging on television to change channel and you spoil it. You say become a patient, the law will cover you. The law doesn't allow that. You must inform the hospital if you have a will. If you have a will or durable power of attorney, then other directives. For example, you can say, maybe if a patient wants to donate his kidney, he can write it down. That if he dies, his kidneys can be harvested and give it to another person. That is documented. But you cannot tell your family a different thing and you are saying a different thing. It's very important. As a patient, you ought to know the charges in the hospital and pay your bills promptly. You are expected to leave your valuables at home. You don't bring your very expensive gold to the hospital. Then when they steal your gold, you start harassing the nurses and all that. You must maintain a healthy lifestyle. As doctors, what is our duty towards the patient? Remember, I said it and I repeat it here again. Our duty is essentially to work at all times to protect the rights of the patient, which means we should provide adequate standard of practice and care. We must assess our patients promptly and adequately. We must investigate them adequately. We must give adequate treatment. When it's beyond what we can manage, you must refer immediately. You don't hold on to a patient when he's almost gasping, dying, before you say, well, let me refer. That would be the wrong process. You must work within the limits of your professional competence. That's why I define who is a doctor. A doctor is someone who carries out his duties according to the ethics of the profession and applicable laws. You must work according to the laws guiding your work. You must be willing to consult with other colleagues. You must be competent. You must be competent when making your diagnosis or providing treatment. You can't be shabby. You can't be lousy when you're treating a patient. You must keep clear, accurate and medical records. You must pay due regard to efficacy and use of resources. As a doctor, you must prescribe only the drugs and treatments needed by your patients. That means you cannot allow a drug company to push you to go and give drugs not required by your patients. Like we're doing drug trial. There are processes for drug trial, but don't allow a drug company, pharmaceutical company, to push you to go and prescribe drugs just to see the efficacy, a drug not required by a patient. If anything happens to that patient in the process, you are guilty. Your prescription must be written correctly and clearly. You must abide by the hospital rules, protocols, and standard practice. For example, if the hospital says we do not do elective operations on Saturday and Sunday weekend, and as a doctor, you now say, oh, your relation, has a breast lump, which is an elective. You're going to arrange to do that elective on Saturday. If that patient has a mishap, maybe after the surgery she bleeds and something happens, you are liable. The hospital will not support you. You will say, well, we'll try to make money for the hospital. No, sir. The hospital says we don't do elective on weekends. So you must obey hospital rules and protocols. Follow their protocols. You must keep your knowledge and skills up to date. I like what you are doing now. Your knowledge will be up to date. You cannot, for example, a drug might be withdrawn from use. NAFDAC will say drug A is poisonous and injurious to the kidneys. We're no longer using this drug withdrawn from circulation. And you didn't listen to news, you are not updated in your medical knowledge, you still prescribe that drug and the patient suffered harm. You are liable. You will not now say, I didn't hear. So it's very important. Your knowledge and skills will be up to date. Observe and keep up to date with the laws and codes of conduct. Take part in regular and systemic clinical audits. It's very important. When people are auditing their work they've done, you must be willing to take part of it, be part of it so that you can also learn and improve on your practice. You must respond constructively to assessments and evaluations of your professional competence and performance, especially by your peers. When you are corrected, don't be angry. Or why did you put this decision here? Don't you need to form an ugly scar? Don't be angry. It's very important that we know that. It's so important. Listen to patients and respect their views. Don't tell them, no, I'm the doctor here. That's arrogance. Listen to the patient when they have a complaint. That may save from embarrassment. Very important. Treat patients politely. Respect their privacy and dignity. You cannot say because you're a medical student, you want to examine the patient, you say, madam, remove your dress, or God, remove your bossa. You didn't give a shit for the patient to tie, then the penis is dangling. I mean, with dignity, you can't do that. You give the patient the bedsheet to tie. You say, please, sir, I want to examine you. I want to do a rectal exam. There are medical students here. Hope you don't mind if they're around. You talk to them politely. I can tell you, if you do it with respect, most patients will oblige you, saying they can stay. All right? Give relevant information to your patient. Be readily accessible when you're on call, especially. Never abuse your patient's trust. Do not use your position to establish a proper relationship with your patients or their relatives. This is very important. You cannot be dating your patient, for example. It's very pretty girl, you got tempted after you have attended to her, or even while you are attending to her, you are toasting her. Because it will impair your judgment. You may not even make the right diagnosis again. If in the process, you now did something that was wrong, there's evidence to show you ever dated the girl while he was under your care and there was a complication, you are finished as a doctor. You must be careful. Don't recommend investigation and treatment that is not required by a patient. I talked about that just now. Do not divert patients directly or indirectly. Maybe you work in a teaching hospital and you deceive a patient, go to my clinic, you'll get better care. That is not acceptable. Protect patients. Wrong treatment from a colleague, for example. You see your colleague about to give a wrong dose. He withdrew potassium chloride, for example, and I thought it was calcium gluconate. He didn't know, he made a mistake. And you are aware. Don't laugh. Be giggling at the back. Yeah, I will draw a wrong one. Wow, we want to kill this patient. If you want to give potassium chloride, push. You call your colleague. Say, please, so are you aware that is potassium chloride, though? It's not calcium gluconate. He said, he will thank you. Thank you, my mind. You may have had issues. Maybe the child is on Philippa and all that. God will bless you. I will draw the wrong drug. But if you knew your colleague drew a wrong drug, you kept quiet, and there's evidence to show that you are aware that you drew a wrong drug, you are liable. It's very important. You must make suitable plan for your patient when you're not around. You must delegate duties reasonably. You must give correct information about your services. Avoid conflict of interest. That's the reason you cannot start dating your patient, for example. There'll be conflict of interest. So you don't also treat people that are too close to you because you are likely going to make a mistake. There should not be any undue advertisement. At all times, act in the patient's best interest when you're making referrals. However, as a doctor, you also have your rights. Remember, we're looking at the balance between the patient and the doctor. Number one, as a doctor, you have rights to legal protection, provided you are performing your duties in compliance with professional and operational standards. I will explain that. Don't say because you are a doctor, you are on duty, you went for a birthday party of a friend, your patient waited and waited and waited, he didn't see you. It's an only child. following morning, you came to the emergency, you stroll in. I said, doctor, we had a patient last night, we tried to reach you, couldn't reach you, your phone was off. And you're saying it casually, whereby I went for a birthday party. And they said, do you know that child we were supposed to see died last night? I said, okay, well, sorry about the loss, he died. If the relations are there and they saw those actions, they can beat you up. We're going to see what patients do when they're responding. They can beat you up. If they beat you up in that setting, you cannot now say that your management did not protect you. You must know that. You have a right to health care services, to provide health care service in compliance with professional and operational standards. What that means, if you work for somebody, for example, that person cannot compel you to do the wrong thing. You are well trained as a doctor, you know the dose of a drug, let's say it's 10 milligrams. A doctor cannot, and that doctor, your senior colleague, cannot say give 40 milligrams. You say no. 10 milligrams is what I know as the correct dose. If you want to give 40 milligrams, you can give it yourself. So nobody can force you. You have right to refuse patient's wish that is conflicting with rules and regulations. That is very important. A patient may tell you, you spent only a night in your clinic, maybe went travel to go and see the fiance abroad. He missed work for 2 weeks. He's not telling you, give me sick off for 2 weeks. Don't do that. If you give sick off for 2 weeks when you didn't manage that patient, you can go in for it. You may not be compelled to see a patient at the scene of accident. You can withdraw your services if there are ethical or personal conflict. Maybe the lady you were to marry before, the boy that took the lady and now married the lady is sick, has a surgical condition, and you are the doctor to treat that person. And when you proceed, you will go to the back and tell your colleagues, say, do you know that's the guy that took my girl I was to marry because he's school abroad? You may not do anything if you operate on that patient and there are complications and there was evidence to show that you have muted it to somebody. Now, wow, that's the boy that took the guy I was to marry. You can be liable. So if you notice there a conflict of interest, tell your colleagues to take over and walk away. You have a right of full and honest disclosure from your patients. You have a right to be treated fairly and sincerely by the hospital or your patient. As a doctor, you have a right not to be insulted or harassed by patients or their relatives. You have a right to a fair hearing in the event of a complaint against you. Assuming they go to report you to your chief medical director, he cannot just suspend you without even hearing from you. Even God himself was the one that instituted the principle of fair hearing in the Garden of Eden. He knew what Adam and Eve did. He did just punish them. He called Adam, where are you? What happened? He wanted to hear from them. That is the origin of principle of fair hearing. Let the management you hear from you, to hear your side of the story. Then, of course, you have right to be protected, to be provided with tools for your job. Lord Denning, 1953 said, if a worker doesn't have the right to work, he shouldn't do the work because it's not worth the risk. For example, in the era of COVID, Ebola, they don't have kits for you to wear, no better protective equipment, and they say, go and look after COVID patient. You have the right to tell your superior, I'm not going to look after the patient until I have my PPEs. Nobody can give you a query. If I give you a query, you can go to court and they will pay you damages for embarrassing you. So that's what it means. Now, I ask a question. You can see the picture there. Are you a medical doctor, properly so called, or you're a quack? If you're a doctor, you're not registered with medical council, or you don't renew your license when it's expected to be renewed, you're a quack to that extent. Now, what constitutes medical negligence? We have looked at the right of the patient and rights of the doctors. Negligence is the failure to exercise the standard of care that a reasonably prudent person would have exercised in similar situation, working like you, the similar situation. Or it may mean any conduct that falls below the legal standard established to protect others against a reasonable risk of harm. A medical doctor is expected to act in compliance with the standard accepted by a responsible body of medical skill, medical men skilled in the art of medicine. Where the doctor complies, I made this point earlier, where the doctor complies substantially with such standard, he cannot be said to be negligent, even if some harm is occasioned by his work. So that was a similar thing that happened in this case of RB and Central Bank, where a doctor gave a drug and the correct dose, and the patient suffered some hearing loss. So the judge, the court said that the doctor didn't attain within the ambit of the law. Okay, the legal framework for medical malpractice or negligence, the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act 2004 is the principal law regulating the medical profession in Nigeria. So any doctor that wants to practice safely in Nigeria, you must have a copy of this book and read it and digest it. But what does the patient need to show that the doctor has been negligent? There are three things a fault may be added. Number one, that the defendant, that the doctor in this case, owe the patient a duty to exercise due care. Number two, that the defendant failed to exercise that due care that he ought to exercise. Number three, that the defendant, that's the doctor now, the failure to exercise the due care resulted in injury of the patient. And number four, the law requires a direct nexus, a connection between the injury and the action or inaction of the medical doctor. That is to say, there will be a relationship. A doctor could have managed you some 10 years ago. After we gave injection, after 10 years, so you have an injection abscess. Even if where he gave the injection that time was actually wrong, you cannot be talking of injection abscess after 10 years because there's no nexus between the action at that time and now. Let's look at some examples that constitute breach of duty of care, what's called medical negligence or malpractice. Failure of the doctor to follow user practice in the community, lack of skill, ignorance, failure to tell patient the risk of treatment, lack of equipment, medicine or staff, inappropriate withdrawal of service. Maybe you are doing withdrawal and the patient insulted you. You just walk away. So I will never see that patient anymore. That patient has insulted you quite all right. There's already conflict of interest. Remember we said a while ago, it's your right to say, I will look after this patient except in an emergency. What you ought to have done is to complain to your head of department or to your CMD. This patient just insulted me. I'm transferring his care to Dr. XYZ. If you withdraw your services inappropriately and the patient suffers harm, he can sue you. Then we talk about breach of confidentiality, failure to see a patient promptly, failure to do what you should have done, making a mistake when you are treating your patient. For example, some doctors have been known to forget abdominal towels or gauze inside the abdomen, some instruments, scissors, needles. If you do that, that's medical negligence and you're liable. Failure to make appropriate referral, failure, remember I say appropriate. A patient is ill, is very ill, you hang on to the patient until he's almost dying, so you come and go to teaching hospital. That is what we call inappropriate referral. Failure to obtain informed consent. Anything you do as a doctor, you must take informed consent. That means the patient is aware what you want to do, is aware of the complications, is aware of the alternatives and all that. He will still go ahead and do the operation. That was called informed consent. Failure to advise a patient, or when you give wrong advice. Failure to attend to a patient promptly. Failure, when you make any correct diagnosis. Nigeria's National Health Act of 2014, we are looking at the various sources of law, was signed into law on October 31st, 2014. It provides a legal framework for the regulation, development, and management of Nigeria's health system. And it essentially summarizes the rights and responsibility of the patient. It also shows the rights and responsibility of the medical practitioners. Criminal, who is talking there now? The host or whatever, I should mute that person because it's eating into my time. The criminal liability, I'll just explain this. In over 95% of cases, the cases involving doctor, they are civil litigation. Civil litigation means between the patient and the doctor, that's civil. But criminal litigation is between the doctor and the state, that's the state or the country. It's not between individuals. That's very important. That's very important. We should know that. So most times doctors don't have that criminal charges against them, especially if you go to do abortion or you were negligent or reckless. That's why it says any person who in the manner so rash or negligent as to endanger human life or to be likely to cause harm to any other person, giving medical or surgical treatment to any person whom he has undertaken to treat is guilty of misdemeanor and is liable to imprisonment for 1 year. They can imprison you. Medical council cannot imprison you. Medical council cannot impose a fine, but the court can imprison you. The court can impose a fine. So we need to be, okay, if any breach of duty results in death of a patient, you are liable for manslaughter. But there's a level to get to that you can actually be seen as you have committed murder. When the problem arises, what next? A patient has taken you to the hospital, what should you do? Or a patient has been mismanaged, rather. What happened? Patient has been mismanaged. What's the next thing? Number one, they can report to your employer, maybe work in an office. They will tell your employer, this is what this doctor did. See the operation he did. See my complications. Those are the nice patients. They can report to medical council. Those who are not too nice, they report to medical council. So that when they go to medical council, their aim is not really to collect money from you or whatever. It's to serve as deterrent to other patients so that they don't punish other patients the way you punish that particular patient. Then some can go to a regular court. Some will resort to self-help. I give you a typical example. You went for a party, you mismanaged, you were not around to manage a patient. Just before you came, the patient gave up and died. Patient died. The relations were there. When you all strode in, say that's the doctor we have been waiting for since. And they didn't see you, they can beat you up. It's called self-help. And when you go to court, you are not likely to have a defense. That's the truth of the matter. All right? Then they cannot do nothing. So patients are also docile. Remember I said they have a role to play in ensuring adequate implementation of rights and all that. Some are docile, they just keep quiet. Say that's so God want them, and they go home. Some will resort to prayer, they can go and meet Babalawo, that's why I put others there. They can go and meet Babalawo, they can go and meet a very fervent man of God to pray that this man mismanaged my son and my son died. You say, oh God, let his only son also die, or things like that. They can pray that you have accident on the way where you're traveling. So that will follow under others. So because of this, try not to mismanage your patients. Complaint filed with the medical council. What happens? We said they can go to medical council. If medical council finds you guilty, really, they can remove your name from the register. They can suspend you for about 6 months or more. Then they can admonish you, to advise you. But I can tell you, to admonish you is not as simple as it looks. You would have gone to Abuja or Lagos, as case may be, for the MDCN sitting, maybe up to 10 times. You can go to Abuja today and they say, we can't take your case, matter adjourned. Your flight ticket is wasted, your hotel accommodation is wasted, the money you pay to your lawyer is wasted. You pay your lawyer already went to court, you have to pay him. Next time again you come, they can tell you the chairman of the council is not around, we can't sit. You go back to your base. So when you finish, then that's okay, you are admonished. So admonishing you must understand, it's not as simple as it seems on the paper. Yesterday they will admonish me, nothing they happen. You can go up to 10 times wasting resources. So it's a thing you want to avoid if it's possible. Okay. Remember, the patient has the option to go to a regular court or go to MDCN. So some cases I'll run through. We're almost closing. My time is Igokwe and UCA. We're looking at some decided cases in Nigeria and some abroad. In this case, this woman had a baby in UCA. And she was still story building on the ward. She had what they call puerperal psychosis, having some psychiatric problem soon after delivery. But the nurses on the ward weren't very observant. This patient, because of that puerperal psychosis, jumped through the window and died. So the husband sued UCH and they won the case. And UCH, you should have known, they should have instructed their nurses to be vigilant of somebody that has puerperal psychosis. Olabisi Onigbanjo, in this case, somebody forgot abdominal mop inside the abdomen after operation. He was found to be giddy and suspended for 6 months. In this particular case, somebody did operation and had sepsis. The two doctors were informed that the patient they operated on had sepsis. They failed to chase the lab results. They were not concerned. They ignored warnings from the nurses. Nurses are already on the ward, telling them, oh, this man is ill. They just disregarded. Even a colleague of theirs also joined the nurses to tell them this patient is ill. They just said they couldn't just clear. The patient died of septic shock. Both doctors were convicted of manslaughter and they were sent to jail. In Arrow and Becker, a doctor gave overdose, made a mistake. Instead of writing a little milligram, like 10 milligram, 5 milligram, he made a mistake. I wrote 30 milligram, so maybe 3 milligram. You're not going to tell somebody, oh, I want to write 3 milligram. I made a mistake. The patient took 30 milligram and died. Of course, they were found guilty. In Olaye and MDCN, a physician failed to give prompt attention to a pregnant woman who was ill. The woman eventually died. The tribunal found 5 physicians, including 2 consultants, who were responsible for neglect, guilty of negligence, because they were the people. So this time, I don't just the consultant. Everybody in that team that you knew the one was pregnant needed closer monitoring, but they didn't offer that monitoring. They were found guilty. In Okezie and Medical Council of Nigeria, a gynecologist trained properly was doing a CS in his private clinic. He was a anesthetist. He was a gynecologist. He didn't have oxygen to give, and the patient died. He was found guilty. And then what are the defenses for a physician? You have defenses if you are taken to court. What are the things that may come to your aid? I'll run through for the sake of time. Number 1, informed consent, proper documentation. Oh, this patient consented to have the procedure. The law will call that volunteer not fit injuria. If a patient has already consented to have a procedure done, if there are mistakes and all that, the patient cannot sue you. As provided it's proven that you are negligent. Not all complications will result from negligence. This was stated by Lord Denny in 1954 in Hatch and Black. In this case, a very good singer went for thyroidectomy to remove the thyroid gland. Unfortunately, it affected the external radial nerve, and she couldn't sing to high pitch anymore. Because I was a professional, a very good singer, she went to court, and Lord Denny said no. Injury to that nerve, external radial nerve, is a part of the complications following thyroidectomy. So it became known in the field of medicine that not all complications result from doctor's negligence. Lord Denny said there are some complications naturally associated with procedure, no matter how minute, and that if every complication were to be taken to be negligence, it would have meant that a doctor, while he would do anything, would be looking over his back to see if somebody is going to stab his professional body with a knife. The injury could not be visibly foreseen or idiosyncratic events. You give a drug that is used by everybody, no issues, but this particular patient takes the drug and he reacted in a very funny manner and dies. That would call idiosyncrasy. Someone else did it. You didn't cause the injury. Somebody did it. Somebody did an operation, damaged the intestine, damaged the bladder, and they sent to you as a surgeon to see how much damage control you can offer. In that case, you can have that defense. And somebody else did it. That was so persisting injury. Injury is already there. You try to correct that injury. And remember, I talked about contributing negligence. You tell the patient, as I go to theater this morning, don't take any food. The patient went to hide in the bedroom and ate a bowl of eba and vomited. Or during surgery, maybe aspirated and had some chest issues. If there's evidence to show that that patient went to hide to eat eba, that doctor will have a defense. Okay, you warn the patient, you documented, don't eat before go to theater. That was called contributing negligence, patient or negligence. In Good Samaritan laws, you are traveling, you met an accident victim, you're not quite equipped with all the things you need to really work and all that. If there were some lapses in the management of that patient, the judges are likely going to be lenient with you because it's an emergency, you are just helping out. That's the Good Samaritan law. Then what we call the respectable minority principle. Maybe if there's an authority who's well known in the field of medicine worldwide, he does his operation in a particular way, different from the general method of doing that surgery. And you did the operation in the manner in which he does his operation, and there was a hitch. If somebody took you to court to say you did it not according to the books, you can quote that respectable minority opinion, and that person that everybody respects him worldwide. So this Dr. Edward, this is where he does his own. I ever went to a center to learn. I learned under him. People can lend a defense to the doctor. Of course, I would call statute of limitations. If you are mismanaging a patient, you cannot wait at the finish to wait forever before you go into court. In some cases, after a year, others after 3 years, you cannot go to court. If you go to court after that, we'll say statute bad, and you cannot get any defense. Informed consent is a defense. I've mentioned that before. That if you manage a patient according to the consent he gave you, in that particular Okonkwo Medical Council, Okonkwo managed a Jehovah's Witness woman who doesn't take blood. The parents of the woman, they are not members of the set. and they insisted Okoko must give blood. And the doctor said, Okoko said, this woman says she doesn't take blood as a witness. So the parents threatened him, if this guy dies, we're going to sue you. The guy actually died, and they went to medical council. Medical council, out of ignorance, suspended Okoko for 6 months. But Okoko knew his right and said, I only manage this woman. He said, doesn't want blood. So Okoko went to court of appeal. He won them there. All right? Medical council now thought maybe court of appeal was an error in their judgment. They went to Supreme Court. Okoko still won the case. The learning from that case is that a patient should be managed according to what he wants. You cannot go and give a patient blood. So that can be a defense to you to say, I manage this woman the way she wanted to manage. She didn't want to take blood. Lord Danny, we have said so, not all complications result from negligence. That can be a defense for you. Consider taking malpractice suit is important because a single act of indiscretion may ruin an entire medical career. Then a doctor may ask a question, can I really be sued by a patient I'm trying to help? And I put a quotation here. Can I really be sued as a physician? It's an emphatic yes. And I put a quotation here in red. If it can happen at all, it can happen at any time, and it will most likely happen when you least expect it. Have that at the back of your mind. If it can happen at all, it can happen at any time, and it will most likely happen when you least expect it. Remember, when I say if you are treating even your relations, your friends, still do it according to the standards. Don't say because it is free. It's your relations and your friends that can even make sure they will sue you. That always because you are my friend, you're using fake drug for me and all that. When a problem arises, despite all this, no matter what you do, there are some patients want their litigants, any little thing want to go to court. Despite all you do, you may not be able to escape. So when the problem arises, a patient has been managing a complication, what do you do? Number one, I put it here, try to avoid litigations at all costs. It's not worth the time, it's not worth the money, it's not worth the exercise. Number two, be honest. If you have made a mistake in your treatment, be honest. Don't start telling lies. And so to go and start doctoring your notes, operation note, what you didn't do, you say you did and all that. Don't do that. Number three, according to Fairman J, in this publication, 2009, British Medical Journal, he says, you can say, I'm sorry. In this paper, he analyzed that in about 35% of cases, even in the US, that go to court, is the arrogant nature of doctors. When you are mismanaging a patient, he complains to you the way you just shove them away. They say, well, I've done my best, you don't walk away. That cases go to court in about 35% because of the attitude of doctors. Not because the patient, the family wants money, really. They want to teach you a lesson. That's why they go to court. Because some of them are very rich that can actually afford the legal fee and all that. But they want to teach you a lesson. So let us say, I'm sorry. Then adopt alternative dispute resolution, ADRO, alternative dispute resolution. What you do is to get a lawyer from both ends, your end and the patient's end, to meet and say, well, I mismanaged this patient. They'll come to a compromise. If the patient spend $2 million to correct what you cost, if you add the psychological injury, the agony you went through, we need $4 million from you. That's what we call ADRO. You now say, okay, I'll pay the $4 million. Then you will settle, do documentation, and you actually deposit it in the court. So they'll document it that we have settled this matter, the patient, we are happy. What that means, why you should document it in the court, is that that patient can no longer, maybe next year, when it's broke, want to revisit that same issue on the same facts. You cannot do that. In law, we say it's stopped. It is stopped from pursuing that matter further, having been settled by way of ADR. Engage the service of a lawyer very early. Don't talk too much. When you observe that it's going to be a legal issue, don't talk too much. When that same patient is phoning you, it's recording whatever you're saying, recording it. So don't talk too much, and ensure your lawyer is around before you follow policemen to the court. Otherwise, they can mess you up. Maintain intact records, but no falsification. Make sure your case notice is well documented. You may even need to photocopy it and have a copy for yourself when you notice that this matter is going to end up in court. All right? Thank God for telephone now. You can do snapshots of all the pages and have it and store it in an electronic format. So that when they take you to court, you can stand at that and say, this is my record, different from the record I attended during a court, and all that. Very important. What are the limitations of current Nigerian health rights, both from the patient and the doctor's end? Number one, our laws are very old and hardly ever reviewed. They're not updated. That's one of the problems. Because times have changed. Laws also have to be dynamic and change also with society. Then the legal process is taught to us. It can take 5 years, 10 years to pursue one case of mismanagement. So because of that, some patients don't want to go. Number 3, majority of the patients are largely ignorant. They don't even know what to do when they have been mismanaged. Most patients lack the resources. They don't have the money to engage in legal processes. They can't pay a lawyer. So they just we leave and for God. Number 5, influence of religion. Your pastor can tell you no. The man is a Christian, you are a Christian. Don't sue your fellow brother and all that. If you have religion very strong, you go and meet the pastor. See, you want to sue your Christian brother, and you can stop there. Of course, family and friends, similar. Say we are family, we have been friends from the village. Now I carry us go court and all that. Of course, people come and put pressure on you. They come and put pressure on you, begging you not to go to court. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, lawsuits for medical negligence can be minimized or avoided by taking steps to keep patients satisfied, adhering to policies and procedures, developing patient-centered care, and knowing ways of defending against malpractice judgment. But I put it there: documentation. Most doctors are guilty of this. Our documentations are not adequate. So when you have a legal case, they hardly ever serve any purpose. So your documentation, somebody once said that a patient taking you to court is actually taking your documentation to court. If it's empty, nothing in it, you won't have a good defense. You must have adequate documentation. You must have a comprehensive professional liability insurance. It's very important. Above all, learn to apply the principles in Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. In everything you do, treat others the way you want to be treated. If you do that in patient care, you're not likely to have any legal issues. Now, we all recognize that the patient is very vulnerable. The Confluence of Health and Rights of Nigeria certainly provides an opportunity for the government to regularly update laws in tandem with contemporary events in the country today, so as to offer protection to that vulnerable patient. Thank you very much. We can now probably take some questions. Is the moderator still there, so?
Good evening, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, sir. This is a very wonderful lecture, very, very enlightening and very interesting. These are things that we tend to see all the time in our clinical practices, and some of them we're even not aware that they are against the rights of either the patients or against the doctors. I have some few questions I want to ask. Some of them are like, would I say case study? Some I've actually experienced personally, and probably I acted in the wrong way or in the right way. I wouldn't know, but I would like to hear your professional opinion about it. One of them is concerning the case of a senior or your superior when he made a mistake or gave a wrong prescription.
Sorry? See, what do you do? Mute people who are not talking so we can hear each other.
All right,
Hear.
Okay, we've done that, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm hearing you now.
All right, sir. So when we have a case of a superior that's about to make a mistake and is about to give a prescription, like the case you gave of potassium chloride, and then this is a step in which if the superior does or gives that particular drug or injection, it's going to take the patient's life in a matter of minutes or seconds. As a younger doctor, and knowing fully well that you can't challenge your superior in that particular environment or that particular sense, what are you going to do when you know you have a limited time before the drug is administered, and also you are trying to save the patient's life?
Yes, I said it in passing. Do that with decorum. If I made a mistake, maybe the man had other stress, was in theater, was busy, and he came. And you notice he drew an ample of KCA, which ought to be given over like 2, 3, 4 hours to go and push it in under 10 minutes. You must find a way to say, sir, please, can I see you? But don't go and start saying that, sir, that's KCLO, that KCL, not go kill this patient. That would be wrong. You draw his attention. Please, sir, there's an urgent I need to discuss with you. If I will be taken aback, what is the doctor going to say? Say, sir, that is not glucose, it is KCL. He will thank you. But his attitude, what you are saying is wrong. For you to observe such a thing, you go to the back of the ward round and mention to your colleague, now, wow, okay, I want to give KCL. I hope he doesn't know so. You know, and and if there's evidence to show that you were aware and the man gave this and the patient died, you are liable. But you must correct it, find a way to correct it. Very important. Very important. I can tell you, if you drag it from his hand, maybe he was obstinate, you drag it from his hand, you know, your management or that hospital, they will make you a hero. They'll make you a hero. Because it would be so bad, I don't want to put it, for you to see somebody go to give KCL, push, and you say, because I don't want to offend my consultant, you are like I said, in closing, Matthew 7:12, do unto others what you want them to do unto you. If you're the one, what do you want to, will you be thinking of it, you will be angry with me? Somebody go to put KCL into your body, push. All right, let's take 2 more questions.
You see,
2 more questions.
Sir, I still have some branches of question, but I don't know. Maybe I'll let others
Let's
talk for the
limit it to
meantime.
one. Where is the moderator? The lady that started at the beginning.
All right, sir. Thank you,
You can
sir.
moderate it. Yes, please. What you can do for me, I'll write my email somewhere. Let me see if I can. Yeah, let me send my email. Any question we cannot tackle, please. I promise you, I will respond to it. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. That's okay, sir.
Yeah, I'm putting my email there now. I will definitely respond to any queries. So I prefer you send me an email, or if it's WhatsApp that is convenient for you, I'll provide my WhatsApp number. All right. Okay, you can see my email and WhatsApp number. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. We can see.
Yeah, you can see my email and WhatsApp number. So
yes, sir,
let's take 2 more questions. Other questions, what you can do, you can send to my email or to my WhatsApp. I promise I will respond to them. 2 questions, please, so I can attend to other issues.
Okay, if you have a question, please,
Go ahead.
Victor, go ahead. You can unmute your mic.
Okay, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes. My question goes that I know that like apart from the medical doctor, like when you're doing a surgery or things like that, they work as a team, so they have the nurses and every other person on the team. So I wanted to know, is it like the rights of the responsibility of the doctors is actually like higher compared to all other members of the team? Because like the fact that a doctor like forgot a gauze in the abdomen and it was actually sued. I was thinking that the other members of the team, in some cases there was someone like isolated. Other members of the team should have, like, for example, the nurses should have that responsibility of checking whether all the materials that they with are okay. And also, for example, like prescribed 30 milligram of this thing. I'm also thinking that probably went to the pharmacist of the hospital, because morphine is not like a normal drug. It's not like a normal drug you can just go and get. It's obviously an opioid. So I'm thinking that going to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist saw that amount, you should have actually like what do you call it? You should have actually like called the doctor that is this kind of like correct. Go and ask the doctor whether this is correct. So I'm thinking, is it like the responsibility, the weight of medicine is actually on the doctor? That's why they're isolating the doctors to like be prosecuted, something like that. I don't let you know, sir.
Yeah, I got a point. There's a practical example. You are very correct. There was a case I handled. We had to use the ADRO kind of model to resolve it. The doctor forgot abdominal mop. The nurses counted and said it was complete. I get your point exactly. Looking at it, strictly speaking, is that nurse that should be punished. Because before I close the abdomen, I will ask you, nurse, are the instruments complete, swabs and instruments? And you announce, it's documented, gauze and instruments complete. and I close the abdomen. But this patient is admitted under you, the surgeon. You are the responsible doctor. That's where the matter has become very complex. My personal opinion is that nurse that should be punished. But the hospital, the law doesn't see it that way. Even the hospital that's not even there at all, the hospital, the teaching hospital, will also be involved. That's what you call vicarious liability. Okay? Respondent superior. Let the superior answer. That's what it means. So, in my unit, what I have taught them to do now, which is what we do, don't rely solely on the swab and instrument count of the nurses. After you have done your operation, before you close the abdomen, for example, it's more common with abdominal surgeries. Feel for all the crevices to be sure you are not forgetting any mop or instrument or whatever. In addition to the nurse counting and announcing to you that, complete. You are very correct. But when you go to court, you may be exonerated eventually. Remember, we are saying it's better not to go to court. The matter may go to as far as Supreme Court. The money you are going to spend, it will be colossal sum. Now, private clinics remove the mop. They pay the money to, or they share the money to give to the patient, and they were happy. So the point I'm saying is that do all you can as a doctor to be careful. All right. If a pharmacy gave you 30 milligrams, why would you give it? So there are the issues. You have to correct, everybody will be involved. That pharmacy will go to court, I can tell you straight away. You don't misunderstand that. That nurse that counter said it was correct will go to court. You, the doctor that closed the abdomen, will go to court. Why did you check all the crevices where you worked? So there are the challenges. The pharmacists that gave that 30 milligrams that didn't raise issues will go to court, and there'll be a case against him or her. You, the doctor that wrote 30 milligrams instead of 3 to 5 milligrams, you also go to court, there'll be a case against you. When they now brought the 30 milligrams, why did you look at what you were given? All right? One more question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, I think we can call it a day, so that what will happen is, let's make a last question, please. Yeah, because we've exceeded the time by far. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. You say ignorance and maybe not being updated with the current practice is one of the ways of getting liable in court. Now, I want to know, for a registered doctor who is renewing his license with NMA every 5 years or thereabout, are there ways NMA try to keep these doctors that are registered under them updated with the latest information? Because if the doctors keep renewing their medical license every year or every 5 years, and NMA is not updating them with the latest information, I think the doctors can actually say that it's the fault of the NMAs for not giving them enough information, because it is assumed that you've gotten enough information to practice as a doctor. There are ways.
Yeah. No, I get your point. You cannot say that. Do you know, one of the reasons what you are saying now is one of the reasons why the Medical Data Council is about how many years ago, almost 10 years now, that you should get 20 credit units. You know that. People doesn't tell lies. You should get 20 credit units minimum before you renew a license every year. That's the major reason why they do that. Because people cut corners. I expect that if a doctor is really diligent and attends conferences, attends meetings, seminars, to update his knowledge, so that he can get the 20 units by the side and also register for the next year. Are you following me? That doctor will get information. But most times people don't go for seminars. They don't go for anything. They just stay at home, and following year they will find a way to go and cook up what do you call it now? 20 units, cook up units to go on so they can register. That is wrong. So whether NMA, whether AROD, whether whoever, if you are doing residency, you must be active in continuous medical education, CME. Everybody, nurses do it, lab scientists do it, because tests are changing. The point we are saying is, if a particular drug has been withdrawn from circulation, not be used again, it's on television, it's common knowledge, even your patient is aware. You cannot answer as a doctor, I didn't know, and you give somebody that drug. If that patient dies, my guy, you have issues to answer. Thank you. I think that's the last question. Other questions sent to my email or to my WhatsApp, I will respond. God bless you and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a truly enlightening session. We thank you so much for being here with us. If you have any further questions, please you can forward it to his email or his phone or his WhatsApp number. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, you too. The attendance form is in the chat box. Please endeavor to fill it. And there's also one more thing. For the timeline for the creation of policy documents, there was something that was added. Let me quickly share my screen and show you. Then we can end this meeting. Okay, so if you notice, there was something that was added here. On 5th July, that's when you're supposed to make your first submission. So from 20th to 27th, you work on your position paper. From 28th to 5th July, you work on the policy statement. Then you submit it on 5th July back to the SE Small Working Group for internal inputs. Then when we give our internal inputs, you can incorporate all the corrections from 15th to 22nd and make your final submission on 23rd July. Please take note of these deadlines and adhere to them very strictly, especially the final submission date. If you do not submit your policy document on the final submission date, there's going to be a serious issue. That's all the announcements. Thank you very much. We're going to be sending the slides as soon as we get them. If you have any questions, you can forward it to his email or his WhatsApp number. Thank you for attending and have a great day ahead. For those who are live streaming on YouTube, if you know anyone like that, you can inform them that the attendance link is on the Telegram page, please. Thank you. The attendance form will be closed by 3:30. So if you haven't filled it, please try and fill it up ASAP.
That's how I was doing that. This is of execution. You don't say